Hey, I'm Randy, and you're watching The Cheap Audio Man. Here at The Cheap Audio Man, we help folks find high-value, hi-fi, home theater, and headphone equipment. And today we're talking about 5 things that I kind of got wrong this year. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about 5 things I got wrong this year. Today's sponsor, and I'm going to warn you, if you have a sensitive stomach or a weak constitution, you may want to look away. Today's sponsor is Sith Audio, audiophile, smoked turkey. That's right. Are you hungry? Having a family gathering, maybe a holiday party? That's why you should get one of the Sith Audio, audiophile smoked turkeys. When you think about high quality holiday meats, there's only one name. That's Sith Audio. Audiophile smoked turkey, $103 a pound. That one may have taken things a bit too far. So, 5 things that I got wrong this year. I don't know if I got them wrong, but sometimes, over the course of 365 days and learning more, listening to more products, sometimes I change my mind. Or sometimes I learn more and I change my viewpoint on things. The first thing, and I think it's kind of important because there is a lot of talk about it right now. High-res music. I don't really think it matters that much. Now, I'm not saying lossless versus MP3 or anything like that, because I do think lossless music or CD quality sound does sound better than MP3 or 160 kilobits per second. But I think beyond that, it really doesn't matter. I listen to most of my music through high-res tracks, through Amazon Music HD, Tidal, or Qobuz, occasionally Spotify. And I've done a few videos on the subject before. The more that I listen though, the more I think it doesn't really matter after one gets to CD quality or greater. I've done a few streaming videos this year too. One of my favorite streamers is the Amazon Link. Now, that streamer is really only meant for Amazon Music. One of the things about that streamer, though, is it is limited to 1644.1. The one thing that I found out is it really doesn't matter. I really experienced this when I just did a CD player review, the Emotiva ERC-4. And I was A-Bing the same track off the same recording through the same DAC, streaming versus CD. And frankly, I preferred the CD. This point isn't really about whether CDs are better than streaming. I just think all the hubbub about 24.192, 24.96, 1644.1, title masters, I really just don't think it matters. I think it's way more important to worry about what type of equipment you have versus the resolution of the music. Even if a DAC does 32, 768 DSD, I don't think it matters. Because if the DAC doesn't sound good, or if the DAC doesn't sound like you want it to sound, it doesn't matter if you have all the resolution in the world. The sound of the DAC is far more important than the actual resolution of the music. I prefer lossless music, so anything CD quality or better. But after that, I don't think anybody really needs to concern themselves about the resolution of the music. Personally, I found that I get more enjoyment out of choosing a good DAC, a good amp, and a good set of speakers versus whether or not my music is 24.192 or 1644.1. Number 2, I think I got the Sennheiser IE300 review wrong. Now, when I did that review, I didn't say it was bad per se, but I didn't really sing the praises as much as I should. I loaned those out to a friend and I got them back and I was listening to them some more. And that IEM is simply remarkable. At first I thought there was too much bass. When I listened to it back, I found that yes, it does have a full sound signature, but it doesn't affect the mids at all, and frankly it has one of the most enjoyable top ends that I've heard on any IEM. The IE300 to me sounds very similar to the HD6XX, which is almost universally regarded as being one of the best headphones available at $200 or below. Now the IE300 is $300, but I used that IEM to listen to the entirety of a Metallica performance. It was their 40th anniversary thing. Just did it on Amazon Prime and Amazon Music. And it's simply remarkable. And it has become my IEM of choice at this point. It has a full sound signature, warmer mids, and a top end that is clear when it sounds like it shouldn't be clear. It is just a superb IEM. And it was one of those products, when I got it back and I listened to it again, I just thought, man, I wish I could redo that video. But that's why I'm doing this video. Sennheiser IE300. They're $300, but they sound amazing. Very refined. The cord is perfect. Everything about that IEM is sublime. At $300, it is probably the best sounding IEM that I've heard. Now, with that sound signature, the KZ Critical, X Critical, or what have you, I love that thing. That's $35. There's a few other IEMs I like, but the standout, the one that really separates itself from the rest of the pack is the Sennheiser IE300, which I got wrong this year. Number 3, speaker stands. I didn't think speaker stands made one bit of difference. I ended up getting these. They're monoprice speaker stands. They depending upon the height, they range anywhere from 60 to maybe 70 bucks a piece. So about $120 to $140 all in. They have vertical metal square stands, which are hollow. So you can fill them with kitty litter or steel shot, whatever it is that you want to fill them up with to deaden it even more, make it more inert. I kind of made fun of speaker stands and how I didn't really believe it. I said, go buy some bar stools. And I've put speakers on top of, well, not really a bookshelf, but a TV stand. When I A-B'd speakers on the TV stand and on the speaker stand, even these, and I don't even have these filled up, but they are pretty heavy. There was a difference. It sounded cleaner, more separated. Stuff wasn't melding into each other. It just sounded better. Now, I'm not saying you need to go out and buy $500 speaker stands, but for $120, if you have bookshelf or stand mount speakers, I think it is worth investing the $120 to $140 to get a decent stand, a heavier stand that's going to make your music sound better. So speaker stands, they do make a difference. Number 4, and probably going to be the most controversial subject of this video, measurements don't matter, cables don't matter. I would poke some fun at the people that really dug into measurements. Now, I still don't think measurements tell the whole story, but I think measurements can be a good starting point. There's other websites out there like Audio Science Review, Aaron's Audio Corner, which really concentrate on measurements, and I think they both do a fantastic job covering that subject. When I first started doing this, I didn't give two rips about measurements, and frankly, if I reviewed a speaker and I liked the speaker and I found out that it measured well, I'd kind of like kick myself. Oh man, I can't believe it. But I think there's a lot of value in measurements. I still don't think it tells the whole story, and I still don't think one should purchase an item based upon measurements alone. But I think it's a good starting point. Now, a product that I think doesn't measure well but sounds fantastic to me is the Dynaphreps Aries 2. Now, I've listened to a lot of DACs this year, and I've compared the ones that quote-unquote measure perfectly to ones that don't measure perfectly, and in many cases, I've always preferred the DAC that doesn't measure perfectly. But with speakers, I think that's a little bit different. Now, I don't think there is one set frequency response. I don't think a flat frequency response is what every speaker should shoot for. I think speakers should have personality, and if they didn't, I think it would be pretty boring. But if there's some obvious spikes in the frequency response that differ probably 5, 6, 7 dB from the rest of the frequency response, I think there's going to be compromises in the sound quality, unless that bump is really meant to be there to add to the personality of the speaker. So I think measurements are actually important, especially with resonance issues and things like that. Overall frequency response, I think, is more subjective, ironically. If there's a rise or a spike at 1500 hertz or 2000 hertz, that can be fatiguing. Some people may like that. So while I don't think measurements are completely the end-all, be-all, my attitude about measurements has changed a bit. I still want to listen to the speakers. For sure. I think if I ignore the fact that a lot of the speakers that I like have measured well, then I think I'm being short-sighted with that. Am I going to start measuring speakers and base my decisions or recommendations solely on measurements? No, I'm not. I'm still going to listen to speakers. But I'm not going to dismiss measurements as much as I used to. I think there's room for both. I think a speaker can measure well and sound good. I think a speaker can sound good and maybe not measure so well, but I think there's still a lot of value within measurements. I don't think it ever is going to replace personal experience or personal preference, but I think maybe measurements are more important on speakers than I thought they were in the past. As far as electronics, I think the measurements that are important is, well, does it Does it meet its rated power specification? If it doesn't, then I think that's a huge red flag. As far as SINAD and things like that, I think it can be important. Distortion, I think it can be important. But then again, I love tube amps too, and they measure horribly. Tube headphone amps. I'm not quite there on tube speaker amps yet. Not saying I'm not going to get there. My opinion on speaker measurements has evolved a bit over the year. Cables. Now this is going to make some people's heads explode. I get it. I get it. I still don't particularly care about speaker cables. Is there a difference? There could be. I don't know. I haven't personally experienced a difference in speaker cables. I have, though, personally experienced a difference in interconnects or RCA cables. Now that could be because maybe the RCA cable that didn't sound as good wasn't shielded, so it was picking up some interference or noise. The only thing that I can say is I switched out some RCA cables and I heard a difference, and that difference was in space and instrument separation. I know it sounds crazy, right? But it was there. I think there's a line of cables that are affordable enough that some can take out a bit of a insurance policy, if they will. They're called the world's best cables. A lot of them use Mogami cables and things like that. I used to just think, cable's a cable. It's going to do the job. Now, I'm not saying one should run out and buy $600 interconnects or $700 cables, but I think a decent quality RCA interconnect from somebody like World's Best Cables or someone that uses some Mogami cables, something that's shielded well, I think is a worthwhile investment. I'm not there on speaker cables yet, but I'm also not going to say there isn't a difference in speaker cables. I just did an interview with Taryn, a British audiophile, and he talked about a very popular video he did that compared a bunch of different speaker cables. And I believe him. I believe that if he heard a difference, then he heard a difference. Now, is it all mental? Could be. I don't know. But I think if we don't investigate it personally for ourselves, then we can't really judge. Do a blind test at home. Have your wife or your kids or your buddy switch out a bunch of cables and see if you can tell a difference. I'm not saying cables make a huge difference, but I'm saying that cables can make a difference. Ultimately, what you want to believe is up to you. But I wouldn't just repeat an opinion that one has read without doing the investigation for yourself. Come up with your own opinion on cables. And that's one thing, if I could encourage people to do, is not have contempt prior to investigation. Check it out. I'm not saying go broke on cables. I'm not saying spend more on cables than you do on your speakers. But if one just takes the position that they don't matter, it doesn't matter, and they haven't checked it out for themselves, then they may be missing out on something. The fifth thing that I've kind of changed my mind on is that crossover components don't make a difference. I think they do. But I also think there's some science to back this up. So one of my patrons, Neil, redesigned the crossover in the Sony SSCS5. Not only did we change out the parts for higher quality parts, we also changed the crossover design. That's not really germane to this point. Even when we changed parts like for the same values, using higher end components did make a difference. I basically did just a new version of the existing crossover with the same values, but there was a difference. So the science behind here is on inductors, it's ESR, or basically the resistance of the inductor. By using a heavier gauge wire on the inductor, it lowered the ESR, or lowered the resistance, and actually brought the bass levels up even higher. So while it is the same value, it does have different scientific characteristics. Also, using non-inductive resistors made a difference as well. Again, this was instrument separation, space, and air. How much of a difference does it make? I don't know, but it was audible. It was enough for me that I like the new version better, even with the same values. Crossover components can and do make a difference, and there's scientific evidence behind it because higher grade components actually have different values. Maybe not different primary values, but different ESRs, non-inductive resistors, things like that. So to completely dismiss crossover components as making an impact on sound is, I think, short-sighted. And I think there's evidence to back that up. Now, I'm not saying run out there and change out all your crossover components and things like that on your speakers. Some speakers I think are great. Some of the lower cost speakers, though, I think if one likes the sound and one likes that speaker, I think there can be some definite benefits by changing out some of those components. So I know this was a bit of a different video, But I think at the end of the year, I kind of looked back. I kind of thought, I wish I would have done this video a little bit differently, or I wish I didn't do this video, or I wish I didn't say that. So this is kind of my video to make things right, clear the air a bit. So if you want to support the channel, you can sign up for Patreon, patreon.com/cheapaudioman. Every Sunday night we have Patreon-only Zooms. We also have a Patreon-only Facebook group. You can also sign up for Amazon Music. There's a link in the description. Sign up. You get all the HD music you could want, but it's all lossless, and that's, I think, the important thing. Sign up. You can cancel. If you cancel, I still get a couple of dollars. You can also use the links in the description to buy products. Those are affiliate links. If you purchase through those links, I will get a commission. You can also buy one of Sith Audio smoked turkeys. I get a big commission on those. Don't binge watch anything on Netflix or Hulu. Binge listen and fill your soul with happiness. And with that, I'm Randy. I'm the Cheap Audio Man.